Hello again. Since RPG-7 is now included in the AT qualification document, I guess a lot of you who don't have an AT qualification or have AT qualification and don't have enough experience with RPG-7 would be concerned about using it in the field because you don't have any practice with it. Well, I guess this video would help you with these kind of problems. Right now, as you can already see, we are armed with Soviet produced and later Russian produced RPG-7 anti-tank grenade launcher, which has the latest variation of PGO-7V, PGO-7V3 scope attached. PGO-7V is the scope that allows an AT specialist not only to target his targets, but also to measure the distance to shorten the time between seeing the target and engaging it. Let's look into the scope and learn how to do so. Right now, as you can see, we have a reticle inside the scope. PGO-7V3, being the latest variation, takes into account every single Russian and Soviet produced type of round for this grenade launcher. In the earlier versions you had only markings for PG-7V and PG-7VM. In the variation PGO-7V2 you have markings also for PG-7VL, and now in the PGO-V3 we have markings for all type of rounds ranging from PG-7V and up to PG-7VR and TBG-7. So don't be scared by these strange Russian names, I will describe them in a moment. The scope itself consists of two parts: the reticle that allows you to take into account not only the distance but also a horizontal movement of the target, and it has a rangefinder, not a laser rangefinder or a sighting rifle like on the Mark 153 small. It is the rangefinder that relies on the gunner trying to estimate the distance to target, knowing the height of the target and knowing the size of these approximate targets at the given distance. So now in the lower right part of the sight you can see the rangefinder. It is made for targets 2.4 meters high. Thus we have an M1 Abrams main battle tank, which has a height of approximately 2.4 meters high. We will try to measure the distance to this target, and I'm going to warn you right now, this type of rangefinder works just fine in real life, but in armor, due to some inconsistency, for example, in armor, meters of distance, 1 meter of distance is not equal to real life 1 meter of distance. Also, in real life, targets don't change their shape and size in a distance. Of course, they are going to be smaller if they are distant from you, but still they have the same relative shape and the same size. This is not the case with armor. Just like with every single other game, it utilizes the thing that is called LOD, which means at the longer ranges the targets are going to be less detailed, and thus they can be smaller in terms of height. So we have our M1 Abrams right in front of us. Let's try to measure the distance. To do so, you need to align this little shelf underneath the rangefinder with the bottom of the target, and then try to align one of these distance notches on top of the rangefinder with the top of the target. As soon as you align any of the notches, you know approximate distance to the target. Keep in mind, this is an approximation. You will not get an accurate distance to the target because, yeah, you will get some kind of inconsistency, or basically you will have a lot of approximation taken during this range fighting, just like with any other non-laser range fighting equipment. And now we try to align it so the bustle, the bottom part of the bustle, aligns with 200 meters markings. So we assume that the target is located at 200 meters. Since RPG-7 is a recoilless anti-tank gun, yeah, technically it is an anti-tank gun, not a grenade launcher. We shall not try to, at this distance, try to aim at any particular part of the target. The velocity of our round is going to be very low, and thus trying to target any kind of weak spots is not the best practice. But we know that if we shoot the target at rear or side projection, we can just aim at the center mass and shoot, and we will deal some kind of damage. Of course, if we hit the turret, it will not damage it completely, but if we hit the hull, it will deal a great lot of damage. We will start with the smallest round available. It is going to be PG-7V. It is the smallest and the oldest round developed for RPG-7. As you can see, it is not very big, but it is still able to punch through the side armor of Abrams if it is not outfitted with additional armor. Since we know approximate distance is 200 meters, we are using the leftmost markings on the side. We are aligning the target with 200 meters marking and using the central notch to aim at the target. I guess we are ready to fire. Just as like with any other anti-tank equipment, you shall use the proper procedure. So before firing, you shall yell both in direct communication and on the radio, "Clear the backblast." After that, you will wait for your assistant or just anyone else to say "backblast clear." After that, you are authorized to open fire. Since we are the only person up here, I guess we don't have to do this procedure right now. And firing. Yay! Direct hit on target. As you can see, the round landed a bit lower than I aimed, because, yeah, the target is not the only reason why you will fail at accurate range finding. Another reason, all rounds you're going to use, they have variable charges. So with a slight bit of error in the charge, you will have the slight variation of trajectory. Keep that in mind. So don't try to hit anything at the ranges of 700 meters with RPG. I think it will be, I think if you have an AT qualification, it is a common sense. The next type of round is PG-7VL. As I said before, this type of round was developed later, and this is, if you can see, it is considerably bigger than the PG-7V and PG-7VM. Thus, it has its own markings on the right side. We know target is approximately 200 meters away from us, so we are using notch number 2 and aligning with the target. Same procedure, aiming center mass, firing. We hit the target. Not a big surprise. Next type of round is the biggest and the heaviest AT round available for RPG-7. It is a PG-7VR. As you can see, it is a tandem heat round, so you have a little penetrator in the frontal part of the round, which gives you an ability to neglect any kind of single charged array on the target. The next round, well, you have the frontal, you have the rear round. The rear is the proper hit round that is designed to penetrate up to 900 millimeters of steel rolled homogeneous armor. But with the great mass comes the great drop. And to compensate for this drop, we are using the central vertical line. The target, as I said before, is approximately 200 meters away, so we are using the bottom line, which has the markings 2 and Russian R. R stands for PG-7VR. We are aiming, just as before, center mass and firing. And we still hit the target. As you can see, we are using completely different rounds with completely different ballistics, but we still hit the target because of the accurate range finding and all these markings that are located inside the scope. Since RPG-7 is primarily an anti-tank gun, it is used primarily as anti-armor asset, but it has two HE rounds developed for it. The first one is the RPG-7V. Keep in mind, PGO-7V don't have any markings for this type of round, but it is safe to assume that the 500 meters marking for PG-7V is approximately 200 meters marking for the OG-7. You will not use this type of round very often because of the next one. Now we will just aim at the target and fire, not like it is going to deal any kind of damage. After all, it is an anti-infantry shell. It is mostly a fragmentation round, not an HE. Yeah, round fell a little bit shorter. As I said before, we don't have any actual markings for this type of round inside the PGO-7V scope. And the last type of round I'm going to tell you about is a TBG-7V. It is a thermobaric round, which, in short, it is a very big HE bomb. As with the PG-7VR, with the great mass comes a big drop, so it has the same bad ballistics as the PG-7VR has. And since we already fired all those rounds on the Abrams, we will fire it just like before. Center mass and firing. As you can see, round is very slow, but it explodes like an artillery shell. This type of round is primarily used against buildings, fortifications, and infantry formations that are very close to each other. Keep in mind that this type of round is effective only against light armored vehicles if you want to use it this way. So BRDM, BMP, maybe you will have a nice hit on the tank and have a mobility kill on it, but don't expect too much. After all, it is an HE round. Also, since this type of sight utilizes the Soviet mounting system, it can be also mounted on some kind of small arms. For example, on this AS-VAL. It is a Soviet Special Forces assault rifle, but if you want a scope on your rifle, you can just detach it from RPG-7 and attach it on top of the automatic rifle, and it will work just fine with Kalashnikov assault rifles up until 400 meters, because if we open our reticle again, if you aim at this little cross on top, you will fire at the point blank range. If you aim at the top shelf, you will fire at the 400 meters range for Kalashnikov, chambered for 7.62 by 39. It is perfect. A small point about range finding. In armor, every single man visual model has a height of approximately 1.8 meters. You have taken into account that some helmets have a bigger view model than the normal human head. So you will have a 1.9 or even 2 meters high player models, despite the actual model having 1.8 meters. And we know that this rangefinder is refined for targets 2.4 meters high. To properly range the infantry type of targets, you shall, just as before, place the target in the on top of the bottom line of the rangefinder and try to align it with any kind of notches. So for example, we pick this poor soul. Let me take crouching, so our sight will not move back and forth. And we're trying to align it. As you can see, it is it hits the notches somewhere in between 200 and 300 meters. And we know that normal height of one man is 1.8 meters, and 1.8 meters being approximately 1.3 times smaller than 2.4 meters, we can roughly divide it. So 250 meters, let's take it this way, divide by 1.3 gives us approximate distance of 200 meters. Nice. So we know that the distance to this target is approximately 200 meters, and if we will try to lace the target, let me just grab the proper rangefinder. The distance is 186 meters. So if we properly calculate, we will have a distance of 190 meters if we divide 250 meters by 1.3. 186 meters, it is 4 meters short than the approximate distance, but it is still a nice result if we are using a proper assault rifle, which has a nice ballistics up until 400 or even 500 meters of range. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I hope it would be useful in the later operations. Good luck.